special panel. We're going to be looking at 30 years of the UFC with a couple of absolute legends. We'll be looking back at the history, favorite moments, favorite fights, favorite nicknames, all that good stuff, and be giving you the opportunity to ask them some questions as well. So, without further ado, let's introduce our first guest. Give it up for your first ever UFC heavyweight champion, the Hall of Famer himself, Mark Coleman. Take a seat there, Mark. All right, we have not one, but two Hall of Famers in the house tonight. Please welcome my next guest. There he is. Please welcome your UFC 8 Ultimate 96 winner and Hall of Famer, Mr. Don Frye. Hello, gentlemen. I believe you guys know one another, huh?
We met. Yes, sir.
Are you friendly now?
Well, hell yeah. He beat the shit out of me.
Hell yeah. It took him a while.
There we go.
I kept seeing him after we fought. I kept seeing him like for about 3 years at these smaller shows, and I would wave at him, and he wasn't too friendly. He'd wave back. He wasn't, but...
From a distance.
Look, I'm here to break things up if it gets out of hand, but good to hear you're friends now. And look, we're here at International Fight Week, the UFC X Expo, and just how awesome is it to be amongst all of these fans, all these people that have watched you as the pioneers of this sport, and you get a chance to meet them, take your photos, and say thanks to them as your fans, Mark?
It's fantastic. It's kind of like what I always wanted in life was kind of, I get so much respect from the fans, but I try to give it back just as much as the love, just as much as they give me. MMA fans are the greatest fans in the world, but my fans personally are the greatest fans in the world. I love and appreciate them.
Yeah, Don, how much do you do this for the fans?
What's that?
How much do you do this for the fans?
I can't stand these people. Come on. Jeez.
But I know you haven't been able to walk through this place without getting stopped for photos every 2 minutes, both of you. So it's great to see you both getting the respect and recognition that you deserve. And look, 30 years of the UFC, and it's changed quite a bit, huh? I mean, what are your memories of those early days when, Don, no real rules, no. Longer rounds, all of those things, you know, how's it changed in your eyes the most?
Changed a lot. Hell, there's more people here today than there were at our fights, huh? Shit, we had a good time. If you watch the historical documentaries, you know, I mean, you see our fights, and the old fuzzy recordings and all that. That was a good time because you walk down there, and sometimes you had to walk through the crowd, you know.
So this brings back some memories, huh?
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, yeah. I know you're going to ask me who my favorite walkout, you know, is. I'll tell you, my least favorite, the one I hated watching Mark Coleman come to the ring every time because it was never a good night for me. Like, shit.
I love it. Mark, for yourself, like, what's the biggest change or evolution you've seen in this sport?
Just a lot more money in the sport. I didn't have no coach. You know, I coached myself. I was my coach. There was a few coaches, but everybody's got 4 or 5 different coaches now. It's first class. I visualize it being like this. When I walked out of UFC 10, Don, I seen the Russians were coming. The Russians were coming with some fucking heavy artillery, and it was going to be the greatest sport in the world, and it truly is. It gives everybody something to do Monday through Sunday, not just Sundays.
Exactly. And, you talk about the training that's available now for fighters. We see fighters doing ice baths and hyperbaric chambers and all these incredible recovery tools and training methods. That stuff wasn't around in your days, right? You literally just had to get back in there and do it again.
Yeah, we get a bag of ice and a beer, and trying to get ready for the next fight.
And not only that, you had to fight several times in one night. I mean, what's that experience now? We see how beat up fighters get after a fight. They usually have a medically induced suspension that means that they can't actually fight for several months. But to actually get back in there, you've both done it, and fight again in the same night. What was that experience like?
To me, that was the coolest part about it. And coming from a wrestling background where you did compete 5 times in one day, it's kind of what it felt like to me. I got better as the night went on. As long as you protect your hands and protect yourself, as long as I got to the finals uninjured, I felt like I was ready to go better than I was the first fight. I fought myself into shape by the end of the night.
I feel like there's one fight, Don, though, where you couldn't have got back in and done it again, and that was when you fought Takayama. Yeah. I mean, let's give it up for that fight, right?
Yes, sir. Legend.
I want to just look back and reflect on that a moment, because I think we can all agree we've never seen anything quite like it. I mean, from the moment the bell went, you two went at each other. I mean, in the moment, do you realize you're in a fight that's going to be talked about for years and years to come?
No, at the moment I didn't think about it, but God bless him. I think he's the one that made that fight. Because he's the one that kept going. He was taking the beating, and it all belongs to him. The whole accolades. I got lucky that night, and I'm still lucky now.
Yeah.
It takes two to put on something like that. Don's right. It takes two. Part of my career, that's something I wish I could do again. I like taking it to the ground. That was where I had the best chance to win. But if I could do it again, I would have stayed toe-to-toe with this guy over there to see what happened.
Nice.
Celebrity Boxing, October 14th.
That's it.
Mark, what was your most iconic fight from your perspective? What do you say is your most iconic fight?
Well, it had a tough choice between the Don Frye fight. UFC 10 was way up there, but then the importance of fighting Dan Severn for the UFC Heavyweight Championship, that was big. But it wasn't until I got my ass whooped after the Dan Severn fight. Got humbled like I've never been humbled in my life. But led to 4 straight losses, and the whole world counting me out. I knew I wasn't done. I just had to put it together, get my shit together, get off the booze. And I did. And nobody gave me a chance at the Pride Grand Prix, but I knew I was going to win that, and I did. So that was the biggest fight of my life.
Don, other than Takayama, which we just talked about, your fight with him, what's another really iconic or memorable fight for you?
Oh, the night Mark beat the hell out of me was a good one. I didn't enjoy it at the time.
Hey, it was truly amazing. This guy was he was not going to quit. I didn't know what I got myself into. 3 fights in one night, but then about the 11-minute mark, I was really getting worried because he was never going to quit, and they didn't stop fights back then, and I was getting tired as well. So I figured this son of a bitch gets on top of me, he's going to pay me back. But thank God they stopped it when they did, and we're both still here. And I love this guy.
I don't want to get in a hug fest or love fest, but I love this guy right here because he beat on me that night and taught me something about myself I didn't know, you know. And God bless him. Glad he's sober. I'm glad he's back in shape and got his life going. And God bless him, man.
Yeah, I love seeing the respect between the two of you, and I get a feeling, you know, when two fighters, and we see it today as well, share such intense rivalries or battles, should I say, with one another, you can't help but have that respect afterwards, right? No matter what happens on the build-up, in the lead-up, you can't help when you leave a little piece of yourself in the octagon with somebody when you have a battle like that, would you say?
Well, when you see DC and John Jones get along, yeah, it's just bound to happen. You're in there, and literally you're trying to kill another man. You can't help but love him.
Yeah, good example there, and I think they've pretty much squashed the beef to some degree as well. You know, one of the other big changes we've seen in 30 years of the UFC is the introduction of women into the UFC. And Don, we've talked about this on our show, and you said it was something that you never thought you'd see, but give us your opinion on, you know, because I think a lot of people would be surprised what Don thinks about women now in the UFC.
Oh, it was shocking. At first I thought, you know, the only place women should be in the UFC is, you know, serving drinks and holding that card, you know, telling you what round. These gals, These gals, they put on the best fights sometimes. It's, you know, I mean, yesterday we got meet Joanna, right?
Pardon?
Joanna,
you're in Jedrick, yeah?
Yeah,
you love her.
Yeah.
Gorgeous, just gorgeous. Except for that fight when she fought the Chinese gal. That was an erection killer, I'll tell you that.
Joanna and Wei Li was probably one of the wars for the ages. I think a lot of us would agree with that as well.
Them women, they're just arms bend a little bit different than the men. They can bend a little further. I'm amazed at what they can put themselves through. I was thinking and hoping to get my 23 and 25-year-old daughters in it, but a part of me kind of glad I didn't do that.
Yeah. Well, you're both girl dads, aren't you? You both have daughters. And Don, do you ever see your daughters getting involved in MMA?
Hell no, I'm scared of them enough as it is. Shit, they learned how to fight. I wouldn't go home. Terrified of those two.
I love it. And of course, we have some fantastic female fighters. A lot of them you're going to see around the UFC X as well. But let's talk as well about how the style of fighting has evolved as well. You know, in your day, you came into a fight, you're a wrestler, you're a boxer, you're a kickboxer. Now we see young kids are coming in as already complete MMA fighters. What's your observation with that, Mark?
Well, it just has to do with the coaching. Like I said earlier, I didn't have no coaches, and you spend time with you better have a wrestling coach, because if you can't wrestle, none of that other shit's going to be any good at all. So that's what's changed about this sport. They all hated the wrestling when I was in there. I told everybody, just relax. Everybody's going to learn how to wrestle, which they have. So now the takedown, it's very difficult to get to takedown. So now the Muay Thai, the striking has become so much more important because you're going to be on your feet. Jiu-Jitsu is very important. You obviously have to know it, but since there's not that many takedowns and the strikes that can land once you are down, Jiu-Jitsu's not that effective. It's effective, but it's just not used that much anymore.
Yeah.
Just the coaching. Everybody's got 4 or 5 coaches. The access to the ice plunges, the saunas, the stem cell, the hyperbaric chamber. I'm doing all that now. I'm feeling like a little kid again. That's why I'm going to fight. That stuff's made me feel young.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful. And sport's just going to keep climbing and climbing. And it's all because of the fans' love for the sport. So thank you.
And just as a follow-up to that as well, you're the godfather of ground and pound. Where did that come from?
They asked me what I'm going to do. I said, I'm going to take that fucker down to the ground and pound the shit out of him. And just kind of, I had to take a few words out, and it became ground and pound. So it's just natural. I mean,
and it doesn't feel good either, I'll tell you that.
Nah, just easy game plan. Executing the game plan is not easy, but that was the game plan, and I stuck to it. So I didn't have the coaches. I didn't think I had the time to get great at stand-up fighting. I probably could have, but I didn't think I had. I figured it would take too many years to get great, so I didn't focus on it very much. Something I wish I would have.
Yeah, but what you did was very effective. And Don, you were one of those early fighters that merged different styles of fighting quite early on. Where did that come from, and who taught you that in the beginning?
Well, I got lucky. I wrestled. Wrestling's the greatest sport in the world, and it's like being in a street fight, every day for 2 hours, against, top level champions. You can go in a wrestling room and you got Mark Coleman as your training partner, and for 2 hours you gotta get after with this guy. You have to get better. That's all there is to it. Steel sharpens steel. So I was lucky enough to be a wrestler, and then after wrestling, I got into boxing. I did a year and a half of pro boxing. I really sucked at that, so I got out of that and started shoeing horses. And then I was a fireman, and on my days off, I'd shoe horses, and so I just kept building and building. And then I had my first bad marriage, so I started taking judo, to get rid of the excess energy I had left over and stay away from home. And so the judo and the wrestling and the boxing just all merged together. It's simple.
It's a bit of trial and error and putting all the pieces together, huh?
Yeah.
Let's take a look at some of your favorite moments of various kinds in UFC history. So exactly that. I want to ask you what over the 30 years of UFC, what your favorite moment's been, Mark. Doesn't have to be your own moment, but just in the sport in general.
Well, it was my own moment. So.
Exactly.
Just not just one thing, but I love watching the championship fights. I get excited. I like to know the people I'm watching fight, and I like when two relatively undefeated guys go at it for the belt, because I kind of know what's going through both their heads, and I like to see who's going to rise up that night, and it truly is epic. The bigger the fight, the more the pressure, but it's how you handle that pressure, and you handle it by preparing properly, and but yeah, I personally liked my Don Frye fight and my Dan Severn fight,
Yeah. Lovely.
I'm looking forward to John Bones Jones and Stipe going in, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Israel Adesanya, I love what he came back and did to Poatan. That was amazing.
Yeah.
I just love watching them champions. I'm looking forward to watching Robert Whittaker.
Yeah.
And I know what's going through his head. There's one guy he can't beat, but he won't quit trying. He'll die trying is what we're gonna do. So just so many moments.
Yeah, and I want to come back to a few of those fights you mentioned as well. But Don, let's just touch on your favorite moment in the sport's history.
Hell, my favorite moment. Shit, every time I got my hand raised, that was my favorite moment. Because I was done for a little bit, got the rest, or I was done for the night. Go get a beer, and got lucky enough to get laid too. Shit.
I love it, and I'll share one of mine as well. And as an English woman, one of my favorite moments in the UFC was watching Michael Bisping become the UFC champion when he beat Luke Rockhold.
That didn't make me too happy.
Pardon?
That didn't make me too happy.
Didn't make you too happy.
No, I love Bisping.
But to have our first British UFC champion, that was a great moment for me since I've been covering this sport for the last 10 years. But let's get back to what you were saying. Obviously, both heavyweights. You talked about, it's been announced John Jones and Stipe Miocic will fight in November, Madison Square Garden. John Jones, arguably one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time, and Stipe considered one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. How do you think that one will go down?
Well, I'm fortunate enough to live in Ohio with Stipe, and he sometimes lets me come down and watch him train, but I got to keep it down, he says. I get a little too loud when I'm in there, but hey, he's amazing. If anybody can beat John Jones, it'll be a well-conditioned, well-trained Stipe. I know he's working hard, so if anybody can do it, it will be Stipe. But, hey, John Bones Jones, he is my GOAT, so he is the greatest of all time. So it'll take it'll take everything Stipe has, but that's the fight I want to see.
All right. Don, what do you think? I know we covered John Jones' last fight together, the move up to heavyweight, and he made quick work of Cyril Gahn. Do you think he can get it done against
Yeah, they had
DK?
to use the cattle prod to get him off the bus. You know, wasn't it Gahns? Yeah, he didn't want any part of John Jones. You know, shit, Jones is scary. He's just a scary monster.
Well, you got Stipe Jones.
I gotta go with Stipe because he's a fireman. You know.
All right,
I love it.
All right, fireman.
There you go. You mentioned as well Israel Adesanya and the fact, we've got obviously a pivotal fight in the middleweight division going on tonight between Robert Whittaker and Dricus du Plessis. And, potentially we'll see that third match between Robert Whittaker and Izzy. When you fought someone, well, I don't know if you've been in this situation, but when someone's had your number on 2 occasions, what makes it different the third time?
Well, I'm going to fight Fedor here next month and find out. Now, I got whooped by Fedor twice and never got a chance to find out, but I can't imagine what that's like. I know Robert Whittaker thinks of it every day. I know that's what he's dreaming and hoping that he gets a shot at that third title because that's what we do. I mean, we live to be the best.
Well, similarly, obviously, Brandon Moreno fights tonight against Pantoja. Pantoja haven't beat him twice before. Don, we were talking about this as well. Even though Moreno's the champion, when someone has beaten you before, what does that do to your mindset?
Being a champion, they say it makes you, 25% better, by having the belt. Yep. And I know when Mark beat the shit out of me that night, and he took my belt, and I felt 100% less, and I hated him. I watched that fight every day, for 6 months, until the Ultimate 2, and then he got hurt and couldn't make it, and then they rescheduled a fight for us in Pride, and then he got hurt again, and that scared the hell out of me because they said he broke his neck. So that, I got on my knees and prayed to God to, heal his neck, because keep him here on the planet. I'm the one who's going to take his ass out, not you.
Do you know what? I really respect that you can talk about being scared in these scenarios because I think a lot of fighters kind of like bash their chest and make out they're not scared of anybody. And then, you get the likes of Cowboy Cerrone that was always really honest about when he walked to the cage every fight, he was scared. So I think as a fighter to be able to admit, you are human beings. There are certain fighters or situations that are going to scare you, right?
There's a lot of fear involved. It's how you handle that fear that counts. Anybody that says there's no fear involved is a flat-out liar. And the only way I could prepare and deal with that fear is by having a good training camp. If I had a good training camp and I had the confidence, I could handle it. And my record kind of spoke for itself. When I put in the time, I had the confidence. I usually did pretty good. And if I could have gave some tips to my family and friends to go ahead and put some cash on the other guy a few times because you just know when you don't have it.
Yeah.
And
so preparation's key in terms of calming those nerves and those feelings of being scared.
For me, preparation was key. Discipline and preparation it was the only thing that gave me the ability to deal with that fear because it is fear. I had a lot of fear, but I dealt with it pretty good sometimes.
And how do you deal with, preparation is usually for a certain opponent. How do you deal with the situation when you have an opponent pull out, a late-minute replacement, and suddenly everything you prepared for has to go out of the window, Don?
Yeah, it screws with you, but again, Mark and I were lucky enough, we did that in wrestling, the tournament situation. You didn't know who you're getting the next round. And then when we were fighting, we didn't know who we were going to get the next round. So it wasn't even a factor. It's like, who gives a shit? You got to fight them all anyways. So that's all there was to it.
I was supposed to fight Randy Couture, UFC 13, 14, something like that, and he separated his ribs 2 weeks out, and So for the next 2 weeks, they changed opponents on me 6 times because people would take the fight, then they would think about it, and they pull out, and it drove me nuts. It drove me insane. It drove me to a lot of fear, and I ended up fighting Pete Williams, and probably one of the worst nights of my freaking life. So no excuses, but it affected me is all I'm saying. It affected me.
Yeah, and of course the opponent's got nothing to lose. They're coming in last minute, no expectation on them. I want to ask a couple of fun questions now, you know, both modern era and pioneer era, if you like. And one of the questions I want to know from both of you is, who's your favorite UFC personality? You know, someone that maybe have changed the game or just entertained fans in a way that you think stands out. Don?
I'd have to go with the Irishman, you know, Connor. You know, he's taking it to a whole new level. And it's just fun watching him whenever he, you know, and hearing him every time he speaks. You know, you know it's going to be fun. You can be entertained.
Yeah.
Well, as a fighter, definitely Conor McGregor is one of a kind. He's the only one. But his personality, hey, Dana White is the greatest leader there is out there, and he's done an amazing job with this company. And then Joe Rogan as well. You got so many, Bruce Buffer. The names keep coming, but Joe, Bruce, and Dana. That's a big three right there.
It's a good call. So many personalities that make this sport, make it mainstream now. You know, Conor McGregor, like you said.
John Anik. I like John Anik a lot on the mic.
Who?
John Anik.
John Anik, one of the best to do it. Give it a hands up for John Anik. And so many personalities that have made this sport. And you know, I want to give a shout out as well to the assassin baby, Brenda Moreno as well. I mean, that guy's, there we go, got Mexican fans in the crowd. That guy's always got a smile on his face. I've never seen a happier fighter, you know, whatever the circumstance might be. But I think we have an opportunity now to open up to some questions from fans. So this is your opportunity to ask the questions you want to ask to Don, to Mark. So we're going to start over this side. So go ahead with your questions, sir.
Hi, I am Viper from New Jersey. Big fan. Question for Don here. Who do you think has the best mustache in the UFC?
Oh, shit. Can't think of her name. Who's a former champion that we were talking earlier?
Sorry?
The gal.
That chick stash.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you an answer here, Don. This is looking like an inappropriate answer.
Nunez got the best. She got the, you know what?
You asked. Do you know what?
Thank you, Don.
What about Ian McCall, Uncle Creepy, with that mustache that would curl up at the end? That was a pretty good one. Question over here.
Hey guys, how's it going? Besides yourselves, who gave you the biggest challenge in the biggest fight in the UFC? To your memory, who was the biggest challenge besides, obviously, all of your wars? Thank you.
Mark, do you want to go? Oh.
I got lucky. I always had good opponents. So I got real lucky. UFC 9, I had Amari Batesh. And that was an outstanding fight. You know, I mean, we had the same fight before Mark beat the hell out of me, you know. I had the same fight with Batesh, but I was lucky enough to be the winner that night. You know, he's an amazing fighter.
What's the question, sir?
Who besides the two on stage, who gave you the biggest challenge in your UFC career as a fighter? Thank you.
Well, I guess. Well, Randy Couture ended my career, so I was 44, he was 45, but I still felt pretty good. I know he felt pretty amazing, so it was a blessing to fight him. I would have loved to have done it 10 years earlier, but Randy Couture is one of the greatest of all time. What he was able to do is truly amazing.
Hey, thank you guys so much. You guys are an inspiration. I love you guys so much. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Love it. Great question. Over here.
Don, Mark, thanks for being here. You're an inspiration. From a collegiate amateur wrestling background, from your experience, who's probably the best amateur or collegiate wrestler that never went into MMA that you thought would have been a great champion from a wrestling standpoint? Thank you.
That's a good question. If I can remember names.
Gable Stevenson. Gable Stevenson, Olympic gold medalist, heavyweight. I imagine this guy could cause havoc in that division for a long time, and maybe we'll get. He's such an athlete; it wouldn't take him long at all to become great. But I would love to see him come on over and see what he could do.
Carlton Hasselrig, I think.
Carlton Hasselrig fought.
Huh?
He fought.
Yeah.
I cornered him.
No shit.
Yes, but he would have been my number one choice. But he had already went through the Pittsburgh Steelers, and had his issues with that. His body was already beat up, but he would have been the guy fresh out of college. He would have whooped my ass at heavyweight. I'll tell you that. He would have sent me right down to 205.
He was a hell of an athlete. Hell of an athlete.
What's your opinion on Cael Sanderson and how he would have done in MMA? Cael Sanderson.
Oh hell, man, he is the greatest of all time. I always believe in wrestlers. I don't think it would have been a problem at all. I think he would have came in and he would have been a master submission guy for sure. He would have dominated people. He would have took everybody down, and I imagine he would have been able to submit him.
Thank you.
Over here.
Hi guys. I was wondering, what part of the old rules do you prefer over the new rules, or vice versa? Because obviously with Don, he had to fight guys that were 300 pounds, which they wouldn't allow that today. And as in regards to Mark being a wrestler is used to those long rounds were to his advantage. So which of the old rules would you prefer over the new rules, or vice versa?
I think they need to bring back headbutts. That was a very effective weapon.
Hey, they changed the game. It changes how you have to do things. It completely changes the sport. Legalizing headbutts would completely change the game. But also, when we fought over in Pride in Japan, you were allowed to kick a downed opponent and knee a downed opponent. There's nothing wrong with that shit. It completely changes how the defensive guy has to do something, and that would make this sport so much more exciting. Saying that, as exciting as it is, that would be even more exciting. But I don't think it can be done.
Yeah, when you saw Silva back up and do that soccer kick, you're like, man, I'm glad I'm on the outside, not on the inside.
That's a great question.
Thank
And
you,
do you think, for example, now a lot of fighters use that rule to just sort of hold their hand on the canvas a little bit?
Yeah, putting their hand down so they can't get kneed. I hate that. It's a fight. It's a damn fight. I truly believe you should be able to knee somebody in the head if their hand's down. It just if they knew you were allowed to knee them, their hand wouldn't be down there. It would be right here. You'd have to be using it. So
Seems like a popular opinion. Back over here for a question.
So, piggybacking off the question we had a second ago, with both of you being great wrestlers growing up in college and making that transition into MMA, how do you feel about Bo Nickel being the next one of those pure wrestlers, being the next MMA star?
we'll see. He hasn't been tested at all. He is probably the best wrestler in the UFC right now, but wrestling will take you a long way. But we'll see what happens when he gets a little bit tired and he can't get that takedown against Israel Adesanya. So he's got a long way to go. I think he can do it, but he said right now it's just he's new blood. So I'm excited. I will watch him, but don't pin him as the champion too early.
Great question. Back over here, sir.
Hey, Don, Mark, thanks for being here. Thanks for all you've given to the sport over the years.
Good. Sit down.
Hey, so my question was originally about knees to the head, but I'll take this time to ask about your time in Japan, having fought in Japan during a certain era. It was like a moment in time, and what it's going to take to get the sport big in Japan again, because it's really not where it was at one point.
The Yakuza, that's all. The Yakuza. Just need them back. No, really, they had a lot of money. That's what made it so big. It was the money behind it. They had Fuji TV, which is the equivalent to ABC here, or something like that. They had Fuji TV as their main sponsor. So literally, the sport was on TV around the clock over there. You could walk into a nightclub and a bar, and you'd be seeing Fuji TV showing fights all night long. It was the advertisement that made it so big. It's doing well right now. Rizin's still doing well. Same owner, same promoter. But I guess without the money and without the big names, it is what it is.
Pride was a moment in time, like you said, and it'll never be equaled. That was like a Super Bowl every 4 months. It wasn't a fight as an event. You would see people come dressed in suits and gowns and things like that, and it's something that will never happen again. It's too bad because it was a fun time.
Off the back of that question, I actually want to ask the both of you, where was your favorite place to fight during your career, Mark? Favorite place?
Either Las Vegas or Saitama Super Arena in Japan, Tokyo. Yeah. So one of those two places.
Anywhere this guy was not.
I love it. And when you fought in Japan, the crowd was so quiet. How is that in comparison to the noise we hear in the arenas around the States and other places in the world?
It was eerie at first. You go out there and you're beating the crap out of each other, and it's bone silent, and you're wondering, am I boring these people, or what am I doing wrong? But man, they just study it, and every time when it was over, they would just bust out in applause, and then they let you know how they felt, once it was over.
I thought it was really fascinating. They would put speakers. They put speakers around the ring cage, so you could hear every punch amplified all the way up into the top row. So they could hear the punches thud way up in the top row. They're very educated fans, very respectful. Yeah. But hey, sometimes they got loud. You know what I mean? Sometimes you do something fantastic. They're just like everybody else. They'll get loud, but it's just their culture. Yeah, exactly. More their culture, and they'd spend $1 million on the opening ceremonies. In America, nobody's at the opening ceremonies. In Japan, the place is packed before the show even starts because they got $1 million show to watch.
Yeah, love it. Take another question over here.
Question for Don. Much respect. When asked about current era fighters versus the golden age of MMA, you said, and I quote, "I think they're a bunch of sissies." I think I speak for the entire crowd here when we want to know, did you have anything or anyone specific in mind when saying that?
The whole bunch of them, painting their toenails, dyeing their hair. Come on, guys, this is a fight. It's not a circus. Let's get after it and let's get in there. And the only color you should see is red, blood red.
Thank you. That's exactly what we were looking for. Thank you. Much respect.
We'll take one more each side. So over to you, sir.
Yeah. Props to you both for being pioneers. But question specifically for Don. In your fight with Ken Shamrock in Pride, he had you in a vicious ankle lock. Like, what did it feel like? How did you not tap? Did it have any after effects?
Oh, hell. Yes. It felt horrible. I'll tell you that right now. And,
how did you get out of it?
I didn't get out of it. Hell, he broke both my ankles. And when I got off the airplane, we used to fly from Tokyo to L.A., but we went to Hawaii for a little vacation. When I got off the airplane, I had ankles like Hillary Clinton. big as my knees.
Well, props to that, man. That's some courage right there.
Yeah, thank you.
And our final question over here.
Final question, gentlemen. When a UFC champion wins, he is the champion of the world. When a Bellator champion wins, he is the champion of the world. Same thing with any other MMA organization. Do you guys think it'd be a good idea to get a unified belt to find out who the true champion of the world is in that certain weight class, like they do in boxing?
I think you're kind of right on that, but
Thank you, sir.
For the most part, the UFC is the NFL of MMA.
But Bellator feels the same way about Bellator. If you ask any fighter in
Well, you
there,
can feel that way, but is it true?
well, it depends on which weight class, right? It depends on which weight class. There are fighters in Bellator who have beat UFC fighters that have gone in there and it literally destroyed them. So that's why that question still lies there. Who would be the best champion if they got together?
If you want the respect, I wanted the respect as being known as the best in the world, and to get that, it's kind of it kind of goes hand in hand with being the UFC champion. So if they really want it,
You got to go to the big
gotta
show.
come over.
You know, UFC's the big show.
Why do you think they don't do that, though? Why don't they unify it? What would be stopping it? For example, the heavyweight champion of the black dude, what's his name?
Business. Business.
Anyhow, what would be, you think it's business, right? That's why they don't do it?
They want to be the top promoter, you know. And, I'm not going to let him promote my car wash. I'm going to promote my car wash, you know.
But don't you think both car washes would be promoted if they both fight, especially if the underdog wins?
We don't.
What was that?
Let's say, for example, Bellator being the underdog and their champion beats a UFC guy. I mean, wouldn't that be great for them, though?
Oh, absolutely, it'd be great for them.
That'd be great for them. That's why it's probably not going to happen. You're not going to get that chance.
Yeah.
It's business.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that chance. So, unfortunately, if they want the respect of being the best in the world, I think that goes with being the UFC champion. So, I personally would, I'd get out of my contract and come over and find out.
Thank you for your opinion. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for your questions as well, and a very big thank you to these gentlemen. Such an honor to share the stage with you. Mark Coleman, Don Frye, give it up one last time. Thank you.